Okay, so let's break that down into the three parts. On the ethical side, there are some very basic things that we have to kind of keep in mind. The first is around privacy and confidentiality. There's some very good guidelines that are already out there that have served the industry fairly well on the healthcare side, specifically the guidelines provided by HIPAA, as well as if you think on slightly the more consumer side in terms of GDPR. We have to also remember that when we think about AI models are inherently tied to the bias of the data upon which they are trained. So if, for example, we are dealing with data that is not fully representative of the broader population, inevitably those AI models run the risk of becoming biased to those particular populations. We want to be cognizant of that. As healthcare practitioners, it's important that when a proposition is made by an AI model, either in the form of a diagnostic or in the form of a suggested treatment, we have to remember that there has to be some level of transparency and explainability to the equation. The doctors need to know why these AI models are providing the suggestions that they are. Now, shifting gears towards the legal implication side, specifically looking at the areas of compliance, as well as looking at accountability and liability. When we look at compliance, we know that the healthcare space specifically is a fairly regulated space, and there are certain very clear patient safety driven guidelines that have to be followed. Any kind of AI-based intervention needs to be respectful of those guidelines, has to be respectful of that compliance. The second, around the accountability side. Now, obviously, these systems are not perfect. AI does make suggestions, it does make certain inferences, but by no means are they going to be 100% correct. The question is, what happens when AI models make mistakes? There has to be a very clear legal framework that outlines where the legal framework rests in this overall equation. The direction then changes to social implications. Patients who are leveraging or patients who are drawing treatment from systems where AI has been part of the equation need to know and understand what the limitations of such platforms are. So it's really about driving that sense of education in customers as well as for practitioners. Then finally, on the social side, we think about accessibility, we think about equity. So if we are building technology that enables improved healthcare, that technology should not be limited to the rich or to the affluent. This needs to expand and democratize access to good quality healthcare. So that is on the front of the social end. Now, when we think about what are the things that can be done to kind of mitigate some of these risks, first and foremost, there are plenty of mature ethical AI frameworks out there. If you are looking at this from a medical practitioner or from a medical institutional perspective. Finally, it is important to realize that when you think about AI is inherently a multidisciplinary engagement or a multidisciplinary field. It is important that it is not looked at as purely technological field. So it is important to understand the mental health implications or understanding, from not just a patient outcomes perspective, but from a human outcomes perspective, how is this being enabled? That said, it is critical to ensure that even psychologists or psychiatrists are brought into the picture, sociologists are brought into the picture. And it is through that amalgam of expertise that we understand what the implications of that technology are fundamentally going to be. It is subsequently essential that we go ahead and deploy the right kind of systems to monitor and track how the system is performing, and to be able to detect when the system does detract from quote-unquote good performance. And that is where the feedback from practitioners in the medical field and the healthcare space or administrators is going to be essential.